Mel Robbins' story is not the story of instant success, it's the story of survival, reinvention, and unstoppable courage. Once broke, anxious, and on the verge of losing everything, Mel's journey from rock bottom to becoming one of the most powerful motivational voices on the planet is nothing short of extraordinary. She didn't come from privilege or fame, she came from pain, self-doubt, and a feeling that her life was slipping away. Yet somehow, in her darkest hour, she discovered a tool so simple that it would later change the lives of millions across the globe. This is the story of a woman who transformed fear into focus, procrastination into power, and hesitation into action. Before she was known as Mel Robbins, the best-selling author, life coach, and world-renowned speaker, she was Melissa Donovan, a young woman with a dream, a restless energy, and a heart full of ambition. She had always wanted to do something meaningful, something big. She studied law, became a criminal defense attorney, and seemed to have her life all figured out. But life has a way of testing even the strongest spirits. Mel found herself stuck in a cycle of constant stress, anxiety, and financial strain. Her marriage was struggling, her career was at a standstill, and every night she went to bed promising herself that tomorrow she'd change her life, only to wake up the next day feeling defeated all over again. It wasn't laziness or lack of willpower that kept her trapped. It was fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear that maybe she wasn't good enough. And for years, that fear silenced her potential. She avoided risk, she avoided new opportunities, and she let self-doubt control every move she made. But destiny has a way of knocking on the door when you least expect it, and sometimes, it doesn't knock softly. In 2008, during the financial crisis, Mel and her husband, Chris Robbins, lost everything. Their restaurant business collapsed, bills piled up, and they were on the brink of bankruptcy. Every day felt like a battle just to survive. She'd wake up with panic attacks, overwhelmed by guilt and shame, feeling like a failure not just as a professional, but as a wife and mother. Most people would have given up. But not Mel. Deep down, she knew she had to find a way to turn things around. She began reading self-help books, watching motivational videos, and searching for something, anything, that could help her feel in control again. But the more she searched, the more frustrated she became. Everything sounded good in theory, but nothing was helping her take action. She'd write to-do lists, set goals, and make promises to change, but the next morning, fear and hesitation always took over. Until one night, something changed forever. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Mel watched a commercial of a rocket launch. As the countdown began, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, something inside her sparked. After Mel discovered the power of the 5-second rule, her life began to move like never before, but it wasn't a fairy tale transformation. Real growth rarely is. In those early days of rebuilding, she still faced fear, insecurity, and plenty of rejection. But now she had a secret weapon, action. Every time her brain told her, "You can't," she counted down from 5 and moved anyway. She learned something profound, that courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of it. This became her daily practice. Whether it was making a tough phone call, applying for a new job, or simply getting out of bed, she began to trust herself again. One decision at a time, she rebuilt her confidence, brick by brick. She used to think success came from having a perfect plan. But Mel learned that success comes from momentum. The first few steps might be small, but they're the hardest, and they're the ones that change everything. When she first shared the 5-second rule online, she didn't imagine it would reach millions. It was just her story, told with honesty and vulnerability. Yet, that vulnerability resonated with the world. People didn't just see a motivational speaker, they saw themselves in her. They saw their own struggles, their own self-doubt, and their own need for hope. Soon, she was invited to give a TEDx talk in San Francisco in 2011. Nervous but determined, she stepped onto the stage and spoke straight from her heart. She told the audience that their minds were designed to protect them, not to push them forward, and that hesitation was the single greatest barrier between them and their dreams. When she said, "You are never going to feel like it," those words hit home for millions. That talk, now one of the most viewed TEDx talks in the world, transformed her from an unknown speaker into a global phenomenon. People began writing to her from every corner of the world, saying how the 5-second rule had helped them conquer fear, change habits, and reclaim control over their lives. But even as fame arrived, Mel stayed grounded in her purpose. She didn't chase celebrity, she chased impact. She wrote the 5-second rule not to impress, but to empower. And when the book hit bestseller lists, it wasn't because of hype, it was because people were living proof that her method worked. From corporate CEOs to stay-at-home parents, from students battling anxiety to veterans fighting PTSD, millions found strength in those 5 seconds of courage. What made Mel different from other motivational voices was her raw, relatable honesty. She didn't sugarcoat struggle. She didn't talk about manifesting success without work. She talked about science, psychology, and the power of decision-making. Her approach was practical, grounded, and deeply human. She often said, "You can't control how you feel, but you can always control what you do." And that simple truth became the foundation of her philosophy. But life has a way of testing those who are meant to inspire others. After the sudden career collapse and financial crisis that almost destroyed Mel Robbins' family, she found herself at rock bottom, jobless, buried in debt, and struggling with depression and self-doubt. Every morning, she'd wake up to the sound of her alarm, instantly consumed by anxiety and guilt. She didn't want to get out of bed, she didn't want to face another day of failure. But deep down, there was still a faint spark of something powerful, a whisper that said, "You can change your life if you dare to move." That whisper became the foundation of everything that followed. One night, she saw a rocket launch on TV, and something clicked in her brain. If I can launch myself like that rocket, she thought, maybe I can break free from this paralyzing routine. The next morning, when her alarm rang, instead of hitting snooze, she counted backward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and forced herself to get up. That tiny action changed everything. It wasn't motivation that got her up. It was a decision. The 5-second rule was born, an idea so simple, yet so profound that it would later impact millions of lives across the world. Mel began applying this countdown method to every area of her life, from getting out of bed to making tough phone calls, applying for jobs, and rebuilding her self-confidence. Slowly, day by day, she proved that the smallest actions, taken consistently, could lead to massive transformations. But success didn't happen overnight. She faced rejection after rejection, skepticism from peers, and countless days when doubt crept back in. Yet, she refused to stop. Her courage to keep showing up became her greatest strength. When she finally got a chance to speak publicly about her story, her authenticity electrified audiences. Unlike most motivational speakers who sugar-coated life, Mel spoke with raw honesty, about panic attacks, failure, marital fights, and fear. People saw themselves in her pain. And they trusted her because she wasn't pretending to be perfect. Her TEDx talk, titled "How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over," exploded online, crossing tens of millions of views. Suddenly, the woman who once couldn't get out of bed was being invited by Fortune 500 companies, universities, and global conferences to teach the psychology of action. The 5-second rule turned into a best-selling book, topping charts in more than 30 countries. Mel Robbins' voice became a symbol of self-leadership, a reminder that you don't need to wait for confidence, you just need to act first, and confidence will follow. She taught that hesitation is the silent killer of dreams, and courage isn't a feeling, it's a habit. People began counting 5-4-3-2-1 to start workouts, quit addictions, have difficult conversations, and build businesses. What started as a personal survival mechanism became a global movement of action takers. As Mel Robbins' name began echoing across the world, she faced something many people never expect after success: the fear of losing it all again. Fame brings light, but it also brings pressure. Every interview, every appearance, every new opportunity came with the unspoken weight of perfection. But Mel never pretended to be untouchable. She let the world see her flaws. She talked openly about panic attacks backstage before major speeches. She admitted when her marriage hit rough patches or when motherhood felt overwhelming. This vulnerability didn't make her weak, it made her real, and that authenticity drew people closer. Millions began to trust her, not because she was fearless, but because she was brave enough to feel fear and move anyway. Her speaking events turned into emotional revolutions. People didn't just take notes, they cried, they stood up, they shouted 5-4-3-2-1 together, reclaiming their power in unison. It was no longer a talk, it was a movement of awakening. She had created a formula that anyone could use to silence hesitation and ignite action instantly. Her audiences included CEOs, students, athletes, and even military veterans who said the 5-second rule helped them manage fear in real time. But the real magic lay not in the science behind it, though it was backed by neuroscience, but in its simplicity. It gave people a gateway to courage. Mel used to say, "Your life comes down to one decision. Will you act or will you wait?" But Mel's success wasn't without storms. When her talk show ended after one season, critics called it a failure. Some said her era was over. But Mel, true to her nature, refused to see endings as losses. Instead, she reframed it as redirection. She took all the lessons from that experience, the exhaustion, the creative burnout, the business challenges, and turned them into new wisdom. She said, "Sometimes life doesn't give you what you want because it's preparing you for what you're meant for." That philosophy became the backbone of her reinvention. Instead of chasing traditional fame, she turned her energy inward, toward helping people heal and rebuild from the inside out. That's when she started creating deep, personal development tools, not just for motivation, but for transformation. Her podcasts became sanctuaries for millions of listeners struggling with self-doubt and overthinking. She tackled raw, uncomfortable truths: how to handle rejection, how to stop people-pleasing, how to set boundaries, how to find courage after heartbreak. Mel didn't offer clichés. She offered steps, small, clear, doable steps, and people loved her for it. She showed them that life-changing growth doesn't come from giant leaps, it comes from micro-decisions. Every yes to action, every no to fear, every honest moment of self-awareness was a brick in the foundation of a new self.